Welcome to a Shot in the Arm podcast, our first special edition from Mexico City. I'm Ben Plumley, and I'm joined by our co-host, Yvette Raphael. Hi, Yvette.
Hi, Ben. I'm excited.
We're also joined by Anuar Cadena, who is with LAC platform.
Exactly.
Hi.
Hi everyone.
And we're
welcome to Mexico. Sorry.
No, thank you. And we're also joined by Dr Stephane Ku, who, if I may, is, what do you say, the cutest doctor in northern Taiwan?
No, in Taiwan.
Taiwan, period.
Probably Asia. No, just kidding. Hola, everyone. Very nice to meet everybody.
Well, it's really great that we're here. Context is important, and I wanted to start with why the International AIDS Conference in Mexico is so important. This episode is called We Own the Science, and I just wondered, if we could get your thoughts on why we're here, what's important, and the IAS released a press release just now saying that, asking the question whether we're still in an AIDS crisis. Is AIDS still in crisis? And it would be a really interesting place for us to start, for us to reflect on that. And I, don't know, Yvette, if you want to just kick in there.
Yes, I think if we're still in a crisis is an understatement for somebody like myself who comes from South Africa and the SADC region, where young women and girls continue to be infected with HIV at such high numbers. So that is a understatement. I would like to say we're in a state of emergency as South Africa and as the SADC countries.
And how about Mexico, Anuar?
Well, we are in a country with a crisis in the HIV response, So it's quite important for Mexicans to have this conference in this year, in this specific month, because we are just opening a new government. And it's a left government that we all have a lot of expectations about this new government. But since the beginning, the civil society of Mexico, we received a very shocking surprise, because in Mexico, the government used to finance the community response. And very soon, the government just canceled this way to financing civil society.
They just stopped the AIDS funding, right?
He stopped the AIDS funding, yeah. And this is a very, very concerning part of the response, because civil society here in Mexico play a very key role in the response, doing testing, referring people to the services. And now we are not quite sure what is the future about the response without the support of the civil society.
Gosh. And Stephane, how are things going in Taiwan?
Well, I think Taiwan is pretty lucky for having a government and the CDC being very concerned about those innovations on HIV prevention. We are actually implementing our self-HIV testing program, and also we have a pre-implementation program for more than 2 years. Meanwhile, in other parts of Asia, I think all these new technology HIV prevention are really behind. That the uptake of PrEP or self-testing are pretty slow. So if you really look at the map of the PrEP implementation of the world, Asia is really like a desert. So I think there's so much we need to learn from other countries. And meanwhile, we all have to go back to our region, the country, to find out our own problem. So this is great to be here.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So just wanted to think about what we can expect over the course of the coming week. And maybe my co-host, Yvette, I don't know, you have been following HIV and reproductive health science. Is there much coming out this week on that?
I think for us and for young women, and what I'm looking forward to is some of the secondary analysis coming out of the hormonal contraceptive, the ECHO study. So what was the uptake and the usage of PrEP? What are the new prevalence amongst young women, the new incidences, and also big around policies. What will WHO do now after we found, we got the results for the ECHO trial? So for me, exciting, but also nervous, because one of the big things we don't want to see going forward is that this feeling of nothing's wrong with Depo-Provera and it can be business as usual. And as I said in my opening statement, the big problem is around young women and girls. We are not hitting it on the nail on the head when it comes to that. So I'm excited but also worried that we might get into a state of not wanting to do anything because we are safe when it comes to Depo-Provera.
And is that true? Is that true for all of our so-called key populations? I mean, are you seeing it here and also in Taiwan, that the people that we really need to reach are not being reached?
Well, here in the entire region of Latin America, in terms of key populations, right? This is a region that we have really big concerns in key populations, And I think the transgender people, transgender women, they are one of the most highest populations with problems and concerns in terms of that. I am not quite sure if in that conference we will talk about that kind of things, For us, this conference, it's a big challenge. Because it is very focused on science and very, very few opportunities for dialogue with the communities. So we know that communities will have to learn the language of the science people, but in terms of translate these concerns about the specific issues, such as sexual and reproductive health, key populations and things like this, I think there is very few, things that
that's where our challenge lies. That's where our challenge as community lies, into actually exerting ourselves in spaces like that, that's so scientific, that's so based on, the doctors and all of the policymakers. It's where I think we need to assert ourselves and make clear statements around the issues that you've just mentioned, key populations, which is women as well, young women as well. So I think we are challenged, and I'm glad you said that, challenge around that issue, whether we can actually, I almost want to say, infiltrate science and policymakers to step back, listen, and see that the science is moving. However, communities, like you say, most affected by this are not moving along. And why is that?
But this is the science conference, right?
Exactly.
The program of conferences that we have. Every 2 years we have the big AIDS conference, and next year that's going to be in Oakland and San Francisco. But in between, we have, what is essentially the largest place for the science of HIV in an open forum to be discussed. And I suppose the question is, how do we translate that? How do we get that to the people who need to know about the science? I mean, Stephane, I look at Taiwan and I look at your work and I think, here's a model we can all learn from. Here's something we can be optimistic about. So,
I think it has to be from the community, like what the community really need. Too often that when scientists are doing research, they don't really know what the community needs. They probably do this from somewhere apart, somewhere very far away from the village or for the venue that the community really live. So I think I'm kind of lucky to have the chance to work with other social apps, and also working with our other doctors and also our CDC, and from a community perspective. So we are really trying to focus on MSM in Taiwan, and meanwhile we realize young MSM are the hardest to reach. These are the kids that they are born without all these bad memories about HIV, and they don't know, get tested frequently. And also they probably enjoy their sex life very early as their counterpart, but they don't know all these novel strategies. So I think from all the research we did, and we realized they actually have this kind of problem. So we try to influence the government with our study result, saying like, hey, this is these kids and they need your help, they need PrEP the most, and they don't have money, so they don't have the awareness, so we need to do something. So that's why when we start our second implementation of PrEP program, they're actually focusing on these population, like this very 18 to 30-year-old young men or young women. And what we found is like their new incidence of HIV is actually decreasing within a year. So that was pretty amazing. And we still like looking forward to the final result. But that story tells us that if you really marriage, science and the community together, then that really do some help. Oh, by the way, Taiwan just passed the same-sex marriage last year.
Right.
So
That's
yeah,
right.
so it's a great thing. So I think that's a very good thing that we definitely would like to show other parts of Asia that if you really listen to the community and know their needs and use your science that follow their needs, and that's actually can do some change.
Anuar, as we are here in Mexico, for the whole Latin American region, and here's where I get to ask you what LAC platform
Exactly.
is. But we have all sorts of challenges, from the rich to the very poor. What do you see as the commonality?
Well, it's because, let me just dig in a little bit about the previous discussion, because about this need of the community to produce and participate in the science. And coming back for your question. In Latin America, we are experiencing that thing that the Global Fund calls the transition processes. That means that the withdrawal of the Global Fund is approaching quite quick, So what we are realizing is that communities for years implementing programs, delivering services. And during that time, communities didn't have the opportunity to document and evaluate our work. Now, in this transition process, when the Global Fund is almost gone, the Global Fund is pushing countries in Latin America to contract the services of civil society that they call social contracting, which is now you have to contract the civil society to do testing and all that.
We've never paid the community to do this.
Exactly.
Same in Southern Africa, same in Asia.
And the problem is that when we have to approach to the government to say, hey, we have these skills, we have this experience, we have nothing to prove that we have the ability to do that. So we need to start to use the science tools in order to show how important is the community response for the national responses. We need numbers. Maybe we don't need that specific parts of the biomedical science, but we for sure need more social science to show how important is the response of the communities. And this is something that we are discussing in Latin America, how we will working and how we will produce advocacy tools to convince to the governments that the role of the community is crucial for the response. And I think this is kind of the spaces that are key for that kind of things,
Funny thing is that the government never really respond at the first place. It's usually the community who found out the question, and we come up with all this data and all this important information. Then you can inform the government to make policy change. Otherwise, I don't think that any government will, government change is a democratic process. So it's kind of, I really think it's kind of important that there should be a sustainable resources pouring to the community and make it really sustainable and long-term organization that we can gather all this important data and pass it to generation. I think it's quite important.
But here's the question. So it's a controversial statement, but we've never been able to prove or provide adequate data for the social sciences to say, here's why, for example, community is important, and here's why you have to pay for it, and here are the results it has. I mean, are you seeing anything, for example, this week that will help answer those questions?
Definitely not. And I think the comrades on the chairs we're very open and work very much in the community, like myself. So one of the reasons why we do not have the evidence around social sciences, the community work is never funded, it's never supported. For us to have a study in Lancet, we need money to do so. For us to document the work that we do, those new answers of, like you said, it has to come out from the community. Science never asks community. But I also have a challenge for science. Who are you doing the science for?
Well, that's right.
Are you doing it for peer review? Are you doing to show that you're a doctor? Or are you doing it for the communities? And if the importance is doing it for the communities, get communities involved from the beginning and also resource that involvement. I cannot walk to Mexico. Somebody has to fly me here from South Africa. That is resourcing, making sure community is always available. But also some credit, there's community involvement, community engagements pre and post this specific conference. So I think the sciences are making some kind of progress, but I'm watching the panels. I want to see who are the speakers. I want to see if the scientists and the policymakers and governments are just, talking to themselves in each other and not to the community at large. So yeah.
Interestingly, I think the HIV field has always been a really good model for combining social science and also other basic science. Because now I'm starting to getting involved in the chemsex study, all these things or some.
That's right. It's more pictures of Prince
George, right? So exciting. So we're getting involved in this substance use, and you will realize that from the government side, it's even harder for them to accept being that community involved because they are facing with people who have a substance problem. So I think as people are working in this field, and we are kind of proud saying that we are very concerned about the relationship and the cooperation between different stakeholders. So hopefully that this model can be really expanded and to be more refined.
Yeah, but documented as well.
Yeah.
But we hold ourselves to a very, very high standard, right?
Yeah, that is the problem, because that's why if you check the Banamex Center, there are very few community around,
This year,
it's a very, very, close conference for a ghetto. It's okay, But the
well,
problem
that's why we're here. That's why things like a Shot in the Arm podcast are so important, so we can get the news out. And this idea of us owning the science is so critical, and why we as communities have to be. You said infiltrating. You said, Stephane, influencing the policymakers. So what about some of the biomedical advances that are coming along? I mean, Stephane, what are you excited to learn more about in terms of PrEP this week?
I think finally we'll see that WHO is talking about on-demand PrEP or event-driven PrEP, which is a new way. A new regimen. We actually already implement that in Taiwan. There are good sides and bad sides about that. So we definitely would love to share our experience with everybody else. I think like any other prevention strategies, they can't be just one. It's like a toolbox. We are putting more and more in the toolbox. PrEP, we have long-acting injection in the future very soon. We have depivaline ring, vaginal ring, and all these things were in the toolbox. And now we kind of facing a problem that we don't know how to use it. Who should we offer? What we should offer? So we'll be very excited to see if there are more studies on combination prevention using some other like mathematical models, and that can tell us, or a combination with like modern technology like social app. How this social app can inform the users when is the best time to use certain prevention, how to get access to that. And so I think these are all we are coming to a new generation of prevention, and we know it's all effective. And now we need to know how should we combine them together, and who are the best persons to get this.
So that's community rather than necessarily the scientists.
You know, Ben, in most of the Latin American countries and the Caribbean, PrEP is an issue that we're still discussing in many ways, and some of the issues that rise everywhere is, okay, we have the evidence that PrEP is working, and probably we will expect more and solid evidence about the effectiveness of the PrEP. But in this region, one of the main discussion is who is paying for, you know, because in this part of the world, the resources for the AIDS response there are very limited. You know, we depend a lot from the cooperation, you know.
And the monies are going down.
And the money is going down, you know. So the priority is to provide, you know, treatment to the people that already it's living with HIV.
Yeah.
So for many governments start to pay for PrEP, it is a luxury, you know. They said, well, let's wait, because we need to understand what is this component fixed in the whole, you know, puzzle. And because sometimes the people didn't realize that the ARVs also are prevention, you know, and they don't understood quite well all that, you know, continue. So one thing that I expect that it's happening in that conference is provide more evidence, because the government needs that evidence to make decisions, you know. And in this region, they said, okay, it's fine. This is a new tool. We can put it in combined prevention and so on.
Well, what a lovely link from the role of treatment as prevention into the results of the 1990 strategy that's just been announced in the New England Journal of Medicine. I mean, three papers basically showing that 90 doesn't work. And just remember, the first 90 is 90% tested, 90% then on treatment, and then 90% of that untransmissible. Undetectable. And it's really shown that this hasn't had a very, very significant impact.
And you know, this morning I heard something about the 1990 that I really like it. We are putting so much attention in the 90s, but we have to put more attention in the 10, because this is the challenge, you know? This is the thing that we have to be focused on, because if we want to make this don't leave anyone behind, well, this 10 is the people that is behind, you know? So we have to put more attention in the 10s, you know? So...
Yes. Yeah. So I'm a little bit shocked. The 1990s doesn't work in Durban.
I heard that, and
I'm like, am I here? So, but yeah, I mean, recently in South Africa, Durban, we celebrated a success story in a certain, you know, district that 1990 is working, and I think it was UNAIDS who was launching some of, and happy to be there. So I think the 1990 strategies, what you said, is important that we understand how it all integrates. For young women and girls, all of those steps. For poor people in Africa, Southern Africa, the availability, the accessibility, and also the usage of these methods, and also accepting 90-90-90, making it a lifestyle. I think we're failing a little bit there. We're making it a textbook, like this is science, right? It has to be a textbook theory, but what does it mean to me as a person living with HIV in a discordant relationship? What does it mean to a young person who's HIV negative and doesn't want to get infected? I think once we get to start making HIV not normal, I hate that, but making it a lifestyle, making us think every time you go to the clinic, can I access? What do I access? Even if I'm HIV negative. And one of the things I must access is my testing. One of the things that I can access is my treatment as somebody living with HIV. And also how we make this a lifestyle, but not make it normal. I don't think we'll ever normalize HIV at the rate we're going, and we should not. Normalize HIV.
Well, that's the issue. If, at the front of this episode, we were saying that this is a state of emergency, how can you say that on one hand and then say, let's normalize this on the other? How does that make sense?
Yes, continued education, get families and include governments. You were saying our governments are a little bit reluctant. Global, domestic financing, very, very important. Most of the poor countries where there is this problem, the dependence on who funds is from donors. So that it becomes the problem. In South Africa, our government does not fund PrEP. So all of it is donor funded. So how do you expect South Africans to then buy into this? Because, science, why are these people funding something that's supposed to work for me? So people think about those things. Who's paying? Why is America bringing PrEP to South Africa and paying for it? Why is our government not saying anything credible that can push any person in any part of South Africa to say, okay, there's a pill that can prevent HIV. I want that.
But I think there are too many slogans in that conference, and we have to be very criticizing about that, no? Because I remember many slogans that it's just to provide that sense of hope, and which is good. But on the other hand, you have to support these slogans with facts, with data, because otherwise it's just like blah, 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 And at the end, nobody can remember that. So we have to be very criticizing.
Do you know, it was someone from WHO, who will remain nameless, who told me that they thought that the real benefit of 90-90-90 wasn't the science, it's an advocacy tool. And so, well, that's great, but if it's not rooted in anything...
Actually, in Asia, there are so many countries that couldn't reach 90-90-90. They are really far from reaching 90-90. So, meanwhile, I'm totally thinking that if you really want to you want to focus on the last 10%, it would be like a really tremendous work on that. So, while a lot of governments want to prioritize ART, the importance of committed use of PrEP or other prevention strategy is important. It's because you can never really, I think there was always somebody left there. And we have to admit the fact that it's never 100%. You can't really reach the final 5% or only 1%. It would be very hard. So to be, like for in Taiwan, that we started to invest on PrEP, and just for 2 years or 3 years, you start to see the difference. So just like only focusing on 90-90-90 is not just enough, because we are really facing a really rapid changing world. And so while you were implementing PrEP, people come here for diagnosis. So it kind of like testing, and you pick them up if they're positive. And so they're putting ART. So everything kind of linked together. So just like focusing on 80-90-90 will make us like really fall into this trap that we want to reach all these numbers. But in fact, there are always somebody there, and we need to protect them. And somebody there who have never been tested. So we have to admit that. But if we can get more people prepped and more people on ART, then the whole coverage will be just thorough. I think it probably will work.
So the question then is around testing. That's the entry point, not only to the 19, well, it is one of the 19.
I like to call this is the mother of HIV prevention.
So why is it then the sort of the black sheep of the family? We never invite testing to the party. We're always talking about prevention or treatment. We never talk about the centrality of testing.
It's the enter point.
Yeah.
Yes, it's seen as the end point. And I think that is how we placed testing initially when we started working with HIV, that we have this number, and I remember this picture, it started with 3.7 million South Africans are living with HIV, but the rest don't know.
Yeah.
A big number don't know. And instead of it being a encouraging message to say, if you do not know your HIV status, get tested, go to the clinic, it was like, we want to find those who are hiding, so we're coming for you. Yeah. And that made it scary, and that is including the community. And that's what we've seen right now. That you make testing part of a lifestyle, make it feel good. I mean, I go for testing with my partner, and for my routine checks and for his HIV testing, because we're in a discordant couple. And it's fun. We sometimes even laugh about it, because I'd be nervous, he'd be nervous. Sometimes everyone is not nervous, and it's exciting to watch. And then we also bringing our kids in. Where are you going? We're going to do our routine testing, and that's how you make your children aware, and how you make communities aware. The testing, there's nothing scary about it, and it's just to continuously be happy, have an exciting life. I mean, quality of life versus quantity, very important.
And there is so much data now coming about the new wave of tests and diagnostics, the home self-tests. And I know that's something you, Stephane, have been working on.
Well, we started the Taiwan CDC is promoting self-testing. So now we can use both like oral quick. So it's a oral fluid-based self-testing. And also another is a finger prick one. So people can order them online and will be sent anonymously to the closest convenience store to your home. So it's very close, and you just go there and pick up the packet, and there's nothing on the cover. So you just do that testing by yourself, and then you can report it anonymously, your result to the website of CDC, and you get your money refunded. So basically, don't really cost anything to get tested. So like Taiwan, there are still some rural areas that it's very difficult to go to the hospital or to the NGO. So, but we have convenience store everywhere. So you get better, really, really good coverage of like of self-testing if people want to do that.
And a whole new wave of self-tests coming through that are going to be just as accurate and easier to use. And
I think cheap is very important, like cheap and accurate. Yeah. And even I feel like if it's not that, for example, that sensitive, like if it's carried by lay people, it's still good if it's cheap, because you can do twice, you can do 3 times, and it actually minimize the false negative chance.
But I also want to speak about how it is empowering to do testing, and how we don't speak about it, because in South Africa, the heterosexual male does not go and test, and we're trying to actually catch them. I want to use those words. Catch them, and how do we access them? How do we get them in one group so that we test them? But for me, agency is important, and that's what I hear from you, is that my power to know my test results and to monitor myself and to continuously test and have that agency to access services, and the issue around how much it costs. Everybody thinks HIV testing is free and accessible and so easy in South Africa. No, it's not. For that person who has agency, for the person who has agency, who does not want 5 nurses to counsel them, go through the process, for them to access the test in South Africa is 150 Rand, which is a lot.
Well, here in Mexico and Latin America, at least 50% of the testing work is carried on by the civil society, you know?
Yeah.
So, and it's true, the key populations, organizations that reach their peers, because we are in a region with concentrated epidemics, you know. So that work is quite important. And well, we have to think what is going to happen when all that system of financing collapses, you know. I'm not sure that in our region we can implement the self-testing, you know, because for that you have to have a very strong infrastructure, a very strong health system, you know, and that we are huge countries, you know, so I'm not quite sure. I'm convinced that it's a great tool in order to you know, to scale up the diagnosis and testing, you know, but it is not only a good idea. You need that the whole health system can work correctly in order that you can implement things like this. It's the same with PrEP, you know. You need a strong will from the government to implement that kind of things. That's why I think we have to collect all that key information as an advocacy tool, because in here we have to convince the government for everything, you know.
And testing really should be the entry point for both prevention and treatment. It's something that should be absolutely routine, and we don't talk enough about the testing and diagnostics. And I just wanted to give a shout out to, you know, one of the testers, Roche Molecular, that's expanding its global access program in Southern Africa, not only to include HIV, but HPV, the main cause of cervical cancer, TB, crucial in our regions. And we need more of this. We need to put much more attention on the aspects of tension. And it sort of amazes me that we've sort of let this, it's been treatment, and then we've looked at treatment as prevention, and we've looked at PrEP, but we haven't thought about how we sort of internalize and make our communities understand that we are living in a state of crisis with HIV, and we can do something about it by being regularly tested.
Yeah, but for testing to work as a strategy, we need to sensitize communities to accept testing as a healthy habit, both HIV positive and negative. A healthy habit that I can routinely go to it, but also the access impediments. For me, that is a huge one. For people to access, to go for testing, it has to be from their will, not a tent here today, tomorrow, another tent in the other community. And when I want to test, there's nothing there. Nobody wants to, you know, can assist me. And that is where the systems fail. And what you're talking about, you know, the healthcare systems in South Africa, our healthcare system is collapsing. So supporting HIV/AIDS prevention is going to be a challenge and difficult.
What about the long-acting data that's going to come out this week, or and the attention on? You know, there's a friend of mine who calls it long-lasting. It sort of sounds like a beard dye. You know, it sort of lasts a few weeks, and but the long-acting compounds that are going to be useful for both prevention and treatment. Are you excited about these? Do these offer us new possibilities?
Oh, definitely. I think. This is from a perspective of a doctor. I think we love to have options. I think we are all talking here, like sitting here, talking about individualized toolbox of HIV prevention. It's because human being loves options. I think it's a great thing. So I want to say that not many people love the shot, for example, but some people really love to come to the clinic every month to get a shot, and it's like a burden free for them for the whole month. They don't have to remember their pills. All they remember is their next visit to me. So I think when we're talking about all these technologies or new inventions, it's not really applicable to everybody. I don't think we are not going to make like PrEP for everyone. It's not going to be possible. So like long injection is not going to be possible for everyone. But when people are like, certain people will be very benefited from this, and this will actually change a lot of their like attitude or their life quality. I think this is something really meaningful.
Yeah, and important what you're saying around, and I would add the context that I come from as a woman, as a Black woman, poor woman in South Africa. So all of those things add to it, but also accessibility of all of that, and making sure that this becomes available and is a choice for women, and when they want it, they can access it. I think that's where we are not getting to reaching women, is that when the choice is for them to need or to want to access a product, it's not available, and what it can do for HIV prevention programs and just for the individual as well.
So another way of looking at it is the microbicide. And the ring, and well, we've not had great success with the gels, but where are we with the ring, Yvette?
I think one of the things is that we're going through the process of getting some kind of opinions from authorities in countries, and we're definitely excited about the ring and what it would mean for young women and women overall. Just having a product that is discreet, that you don't need permission, you don't have to announce it. Hey, I'm using a ring. You can just keep quiet about it and it be your own little secret, or you can tell your partner. We're looking forward to some positive, and I think women and in the countries where the ring study happened are looking forward to a ring and looking forward to positive results. And we also know some of these products, PrEP, the ring, all of this, studies have shown it only works, even contraceptives, only works when you use it.
Yeah.
So we also know that what happens in the studies can be different, so much different in the real context of a young woman and a woman when they have to use it. And also we know when some products are still in studies, what happens? Young people are still worried. Shouldn't I use it? When there is data to say it works, then people increase the uptake. So for me, that's exciting.
I think that idea of provide options to the people is great, because each new technology or new approach, it could be better for one population, but it will not working fine for others, no? And it's the same with the countries, no? Some countries can implement easily, and others not. So we have to watch the context, What is the real context in terms of the systems, the legal environment, the level of the economy of the country in order to afford that kind of thing. So there are many options. We are, discovering many new things, but new things, there are
challenges to it. Yes.
As well.
Let
me give you an example here in Mexico. For years, we have something that we call canasta básica, which is a basic package of medicines. For years, we used all ARVs. Until now, we are, reviewed this package and use and get out all that old medicines that we don't need, but it's still in the package, So we need to incorporate the new ones, because it's an evolution.
But also systematically, I just wanted to add to that even though there's one pill a day, there's long acting, somebody like me, I still use my 3 pills. Because if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So give the option to the people who want to stay on that.
Exactly.
So one of the things that strikes me as we're talking, and I noticed it today as we were walking up and down the conference halls, and that's a great way, by the way, of getting your daily exercise in. But there is, despite the really heavy topics we've talked about in this episode, there is a sort of a gritted determination, a relentless optimism amongst our communities. And have you seen that? I mean, what do you think makes us continually optimistic?
Are you sure we're just not happy to see each other in the corridors? Because all of us, it happens, we come globally. But I think we cannot not be optimistic. I mean, I'm excited to hear from the comrades on the chairs that things are happening and communities continue to push. And it makes me feel kind of optimistic, like, okay, it's not that bad in South Africa. I don't want to be in Mexico. But yes, and it's those things. And that's the power of community, is that communities are always so inspirational and aspirational to things of the future, because that is what keeps us alive. And I think initially with way back, that's what kept us alive.
I think
before there was treatment.
I think we're seeing a different generation coming up, which is a great thing. Like AIDS have been in like human history for more than 30, almost 40 years. And we are seeing the new generation with new tools with them. So people are now growing up with different strategies. And of course, we didn't talk about condom. I think there should be more interesting studies about condom. Why there should be like very uncomfortable condom. There's a condom with microbicide. There's a condom with all these indicator of STI. That seems to be a very fun thing. But but they're also part of the toolbox. What I want to say is that we are seeing a new generation with like new strategy. They use their IG, they use different social medias, and they're using different ways of spreading informations. And we need to incorporate all these new technologies. So rather be afraid of being sad about these new things. I think we're still happy that seeing that all these things will be more complicated, but somehow we need to incorporate it in a new way. So I think it's great.
I am quite optimistic. I have been optimistic from the last 28 years since I was diagnosed. And since I was diagnosed with HIV, I'm just living the process of the science. And I improve the science, and I put the science in my body, and I know that it's possible. And I'm very, very optimistic that in the future, things could be better. But I know that the process is slow, and we have to consider all of those challenges in the road. So it is a long, long, long road to reach the end of the epidemic. But of course I am optimistic about the response, because science shows that it works and saves lives. And
yes. I think what our young doctor over here said just gave me hope, that young people, we need to embrace young people. We don't only need to embrace young people as the subjects of it, but the young people in driving and making the change. I want to see more young doctors. I want to see more Black women doctors. I want to see more young scientists coming out and finding the solutions for themselves. I say something that really gives me goosebumps most of the time, which is one of the things. I'm an old person, 20 years living with HIV. I'm already HIV positive. Why the hell am I the face of HIV prevention? And the same with contraceptives. I might never need a baby. I don't use contraceptives currently. Why are we not creating those spaces for young people to come up and find the solutions? And I think that would be our big challenge for the coming years.
Well, I think they are finding the solutions, just not necessarily the way us old people understand. You wouldn't understand. But, you mentioned tech, you mentioned the use of apps. I think there's a whole lot of work being done there that we're us oldies in the AIDS movement are only now getting our heads around. And I think the thing that really struck me today was, the resilience of people who've been doing this for so many years. And it was like seeing comrades in arms.
Yeah.
But I have to say the highlight for me today, on a really silly note, was the color of Linda Gale Becker's hair.
Oh,
which has gone
that's
blue.
Beautiful.
It's absolutely
I saw
stunning.
purple. You saw blue?
I saw blue. It's purple.
Okay. But still cute. Our LGBT.
Yes. So, any final thoughts as we finish our first episode?
It's the beginning of a very exciting conference. I think the beginning of a next era for HIV and AIDS prevention, research, and also community involvement. I think more and more do we see that scientists are embracing, are opening up. Our friends, you've mentioned Linda Gale, there's many other women who are embracing Helen Rees, and this community engagement and seeing the value and the diamond and the power of communities when they do work in HIV and AIDS. I've never seen a scientist do community, community, getting communities together or having a dialogue or a discussion. So communities are actually the heartbeat of getting us all together. And I'm excited. I'm so glad I've met everyone on this couch.
Yeah. I mean, I can't wait to make friends with more passionate people in this field. I always feel that people working with HIV has such great mind, and I always learn a lot from people around the world. So I just can't wait. Every time I'm in IAS, I think I'm very excited just to get to know new people.
Mm-hmm. Well, what I hope to see in the next days is a lot of advocacy groups doing a lot of noise in the conference. Especially people from Latin America, especially people from Venezuela.
Yes.
Venezuela is living in a huge humanitarian crisis, This is a, red light that is just sounding very low. And it is not only Venezuela. Even here in Mexico, we are living in a humanitarian crisis because people from Central America is trying to reach the United States, the North. And here, with the new policies of the Trump president that just want to stop the immigration.
Will that be censored?
The country that's paying the broken, things is Mexico, because all that people that want to cross the border is stupid here, and we have to deal with this crisis even in the north border and the south border. So Latin America is burning, So we need to, speak out about that kind of things, and I hope this conference here in Mexico can be this scenario where we can raise the voice, about that kind of thing.
And I certainly think that the IAS represented that in its opening remarks. And I'm just reflecting on how...
I hope so.
Yeah, and how Anton Posnak spoke exactly to those words. Well, we've got a lot of work to do, and I think we're all geared up to do it. It's not just this week, it's, as you said, it's for the long haul. So, Stephane, thank you very much for joining us. Anuar Cadena, my dear friend, thank you so much for joining us. And, of course, my partner in crime, co-host, Yvette Raphael, thank you.
Amandla. Huh? I needed to say that, Amandla.
Amanka.
Okay. Amandla.
Amandla.
No. Yes.
Well, you are a shot in the arm. And thank you all for joining us. We will be back in a day with our next episode. Subscribe and find us wherever you find your podcasts. And don't forget to give us 5 stars. So thank you for being a shot in the arm.